Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here today. If you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the community. Now, before we dive into today's story, if you're listening alone, leave a 1 in the comments, and if you're listening with a loved one, leave a 2 in the comments. Your feedback really means a lot to me and helps me bring you more great videos. Okay, let's get started. Hope you're ready for a fun ride. Sarah, a vibrant and successful entrepreneur in her early 40s, stood amidst the elegant ambience of her own art gallery, a testament to her years of hard work and dedication. Tonight was the gallery's grand opening, a culmination of Sarah's lifelong dream. Among the crowd of art enthusiasts and collectors was Sarah's husband, David, a charming and charismatic man who basked in the glow of Sarah's achievements. His mother, Eleanor, however, was a different story. Eleanor, a woman of refined tastes and old-fashioned values, had never quite approved of Sarah. She considered Sarah's family background too modest, her demeanor too independent, and her success too much. As Sarah gracefully mingled with her guests, Eleanor approached her, a subtle smirk playing on her lips. "Sarah, darling," she began, her voice dripping with condescension, "I must say, this is quite impressive. But don't let it get to your head. Remember, a woman's place is ultimately by her husband's side." Sarah, ever composed, simply smiled. "Thank you, Eleanor. But I believe my place is wherever I choose it to be." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You're so headstrong, just like your mother," she retorted, referring to Sarah's late mother, a woman Eleanor had always disapproved of. "You'll never find true happiness if you don't learn to be more submissive." Sarah's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "Eleanor," she said calmly, "I believe happiness is found in being true to oneself, not in conforming to someone else's expectations." Eleanor scoffed. "You think you know better than me, than David's whole family? We've been around for generations, we know what's best for David." Sarah's eyes hardened. "And what's best for David is a wife who supports his dreams, not one who caters to his every whim." Eleanor gasped, her face reddening. "How dare you? You're not good enough for my son, for this family." Sarah's heart clenched, but she refused to let Eleanor see her pain. "I beg to differ," she said, her voice steady. "I believe I'm exactly what David needs." The grand opening was a resounding success, but Sarah's encounter with Eleanor cast a shadow over the evening. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Eleanor was plotting something that could jeopardize her marriage and her happiness. A few weeks later, Sarah's fears were confirmed. David came home one evening, his face etched with worry. "Sarah," he began, his voice hesitant, "Mom wants me to leave you." Sarah's heart sank. "And what do you want, David?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. David looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "I don't know," he mumbled. "Mom says you're not the right fit for our family, that you're holding me back." Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "And you believe her?" David remained silent, his silence speaking volumes. Sarah's anger turned to sadness. "I see," she said, her voice flat. "Well, if that's what you want, David, I won't stand in your way." David's head snapped up, surprise evident in his eyes. "You're not going to fight for me?" Sarah shrugged. "What's the point? You've already made your choice." Sarah left their shared home that night, her heart heavy but her resolve firm. She refused to be a victim, a woman scorned. She would rise above this, stronger and more independent than ever. Meanwhile, Eleanor was gloating over her victory. She had finally gotten rid of Sarah, the woman she deemed unworthy of her son. She was already planning to find a new wife for David, someone who would fit their family's mold. But Eleanor's triumph was short-lived. A few weeks later, David received a shocking phone call. The bank informed him that his name wasn't on the mortgage of their house. David was stunned. "What do you mean? I've always lived there, I've always paid the bills." The bank representative explained that the house was solely in Sarah's name. David was incredulous. He had always believed that the house was a joint asset, a symbol of their shared life. As the truth dawned on him, David felt a wave of shame wash over him. He had been so blinded by his mother's prejudices that he had failed to see the reality of his marriage. Sarah, meanwhile, was thriving. She focused on her art gallery, nurturing her passion and expanding her business. She was surrounded by supportive friends and colleagues who valued her for who she was, not for her family connections. One day, David called Sarah, his voice filled with regret. "Sarah, I was wrong," he confessed. "Mom was wrong about you. You were never the problem, it was me. I let her influence me, I didn't trust my own judgment." Sarah listened silently, her heart unmoved. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," David continued, "but I hope you can give me another chance. I promise I'll make it up to you." Sarah took a deep breath. "David," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I appreciate your apology, but I've moved on. I'm happy with my life, with who I am. I don't need you to complete me." David was taken aback. But I thought we were meant to be together." Sarah chuckled softly. "Meant to be? Or meant to conform to your mother's expectations? I'm not the same woman you married, David. I've grown, I've learned my worth. And I deserve someone who sees that, who cherishes me for who I am, not for who they want me to be." David was silent, his heart sinking. He had lost Sarah, not just as a wife, but as a friend, a confidant. He had lost her because he had failed to see her true value, because he had allowed his mother's prejudices to cloud his judgment. Months passed, and Sarah's life continued to flourish. Her gallery became a well-known hub for art lovers, her reputation as an entrepreneur grew, and she finally felt at peace with herself. She had built a life independent of David's influence, one that was solely hers. But despite her success, she still couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, not in the form of another person, but perhaps a deeper sense of closure. One evening, as she sat in her gallery, sipping a glass of wine, she received an unexpected visitor. It was Eleanor. The last person she had expected, yet here she was, standing in the doorway with an air of hesitation, something Sarah had never seen in her before. "May I come in?" Eleanor asked, her voice soft, not the usual condescending tone Sarah had grown accustomed to. Sarah raised an eyebrow but gestured for her to enter. She didn't know what to expect, but she wasn't about to turn the woman away. Eleanor stood awkwardly in the center of the gallery, her eyes scanning the art pieces on the walls, as though she were lost in thought. It was a stark contrast to the confident, authoritative matriarch Sarah had known. Finally, Eleanor spoke, her voice low. "I've been thinking, a lot. About everything. About you. About David." Sarah remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I was wrong," Eleanor admitted, her words hesitant but sincere. "I was so blinded by my own ideals, by my own fears for David, that I failed to see what was right in front of me. You were never the problem, Sarah. It was me. I let my own prejudices, my own fears, control my judgment." Sarah listened, her expression unreadable, but her mind was racing. This was not the woman she had known. Eleanor continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "I thought I was protecting him, but all I did was push him away from what he needed most, someone who saw him for who he truly was, not for what I wanted him to be." Sarah took a moment to digest Eleanor's words. Part of her wanted to feel vindicated, to shout that she had been right all along, but she didn't. She had learned that true strength was not in holding on to resentment, but in choosing how to move forward. "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness," Eleanor said, her eyes meeting Sarah's. "But I wanted you to know that I see you now. For who you really are. And I'm sorry for everything." Sarah exhaled slowly, the weight of the past few months lifting off her shoulders. "I appreciate your apology, Eleanor. It means more than you know. She paused, her eyes softening. But I've moved on. My life is mine now. I've built something I'm proud of. And I don't need anyone's approval, especially not from someone who doesn't understand me. Eleanor nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I understand. I see that now. The silence between them lingered for a moment, but it wasn't an uncomfortable one. It was a moment of understanding, of closure. Eleanor had come to terms with her mistakes, and Sarah had found peace in knowing that she no longer needed to fight for anyone's approval but her own. As the weeks passed, David continued to reach out to Sarah, but she remained firm in her decision. His apologies were heartfelt, but the trust had been broken beyond repair. He had lost not only her love, but also the opportunity to be part of the woman she had become. Sarah's life grew richer in ways she hadn't imagined. She expanded her gallery, took on new art commissions, and even began collaborating with international artists. She also found joy in new relationships, friendships with people who valued her for who she was, not for her connections or status. One day, as Sarah was preparing for an art show, she received a call from a potential investor who had heard of her work. He was interested in partnering with her to expand her business further. This was the opportunity she had dreamed of, a chance to grow, to build even more, and to leave a legacy that was entirely hers. As Sarah stood in her gallery, looking at the paintings that now adorned the walls, she realized something profound. Her journey had not been about the validation of others. It had been about finding her own worth, her own voice, and the strength to stand by her decisions, no matter the cost. She didn't need David. She didn't need Eleanor. She didn't need anyone's approval. She had built a life that was entirely her own, a life that was fulfilling, rich in purpose, and full of promise for the future. And in that moment, as she looked at the masterpiece of her own making, Sarah knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think. Your feedback really helps me create better content for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks again and see you in the next video. Take care.